Hey everybody, it's Emily, the Crazy Worm Lady. I'm here today with the Worm Factory. Wanted to see how it was coming along. I haven't touched it this week at all, but it still feels nice and moist in here. This is that large piece of cabbage that I didn't completely break down. It looks like it's starting to try to grow on me. I might have to break this up a little bit more. But there are some worms around it, as well as some mites and things like that. So let's see here. Yeah, it's super wet in here, so I don't think I'm gonna have to add anything to this anytime soon as far as water. Those are some springtails in there, and they're fine. They're not going to hurt anything in your bin. They help break down things just like anything else. There's also a few pot worms. That white worm right there, that's a pot worm. But all of these are almost inevitable to get in bins. Some people get lucky and don't, but I think they come in via your fruit scraps and things like that, so it's really nothing to be concerned about. Unless you're looking to sell your worms or something like that and you want to make sure that there's no bugs in the mix. But even then, if you screen it out and all, probably you could still get some good clean worms. But in general, it looks like most of the food, other than a few little shells and things like that, the cabbage, everything else seems pretty broken down. I'm seeing a handful of sprouts in here. I think that's from a little bell pepper I put in here. The one thing that is nice about this bin is that it has lots of time to mature since you have multiple trays. So most of those sprouts will break down, get re-eaten, and you won't have to worry about getting volunteer plants in your garden. So overall, I'm really pleased with this. There's just lots of various size worms in here, and they're pretty active all throughout. So I think I'm gonna add a little bit of food to this. So let me go grab a little something out of the kitchen and see what I have. I don't always peel off these labels, just thought I'd mention that. However, just know that once your compost is broken down, you will have to pick that out. But if that doesn't bother you, then it's no big deal. Alright, so let me go grab something and we will add it to the bin. I honestly don't remember what was in this corner, but I was just finishing up turning everything around. And this corner is just loaded. So I thought I would show that to you real quick before we add the food. They really tend to congregate where there's food that they liked or food that's still actively breaking down. So let's get some food in here. Okay guys, so I just shredded up some pizza box that I had here and put it over in this corner, and I'll tell you why. I don't always add bedding when I feed. However, in a crunch here, wanting to add some food, this coleslaw mix that I had left over is frozen solid, and I would never recommend you put food that's completely frozen into your bins. However, I have done it before, and I know I can get away with it and they'll be fine, but sometimes the drastic change in temperature will make your worms try to leave the bin. So if you are ever freezing your scraps, I would always say to thaw them first just to be safe, but since this bin's pretty well established, I'm 99% certain it will be fine in my bin, but I wouldn't recommend it to anybody else just because I wouldn't want you guys to have a mass exodus on your hands. So here's our chunk of coleslaw mix. I put it on top of this bedding so that it won't freeze any of the worms, and they'll just move away until it starts to break down and warms up, and then they'll move back to it. But I'm also going to add a handful of coffee grounds. I make coffee every day, and I keep a old coffee container on my counter right here, full of my used grounds, and my worms really enjoy them. But even though they've been had hot water run through them, sometimes they can still be a hair acidic. So I'm also going to sprinkle on some eggshell that I have. So here's a healthy sprinkling of that eggshell, which is good for grit. The calcium is good for their reproduction, and it'll also help buffer the pH if anything was to get a little bit warm. I'm sorry, not warm, acidic. So I'm just going to lay a little bit of compost over the top here, but I want to be careful because I don't want to hurt any of the worms. I can always come back later and sprinkle some more on here. Get these worms out of here. So this is how I'm going to leave it for this week, and I'll come back for an update next week, and hopefully this whole corner here will be swarming as well. So I hope you guys have an excellent day, and I will be back with an update soon.